Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are this evening going to be looking at what is described today in Cameroon as COVID Gate, where the funds that were made available to the Cameroon government from the IMF as far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned. We are going to go beyond that, looking at the totality of efforts put together by Cameroonians. We saw business persons, individuals putting money together as a way of showing solidarity to government's efforts to fight COVID-19. Where are we as far as accountability with such resources are concerned? We also are going to be zooming into the visit to GICAM last week by the Prime Minister, head of government, out here in Douala, Cameroon's economic capital. We look at what would be the possible outcome of such a meeting. We are going to be discussing these two topics with our panelists who are in the studio already. Dr. Ngwanyam is one of us this evening. He is a social entrepreneur and educationist par excellence and a politician. Good evening, Dr. Nick, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Cameroonians. This is one of the greatest days in my life. Mr. Kum would tell you that we've been looking into the crystal ball all this while. And when I said that the paradigm shift was going to happen, that things were going to happen, this is it. This is it. The key has just turned. It's just the start. And you're going to see a lot of things cascade out of position. And therefore, for those of us who are Christians, those of us who believe in God, those of us who are good Muslims and who know the will of God, I would like to say that when you pray as a Christian for God to help you, or a good Muslim for God to help you, you would have your own ideas in mind, thinking God is going to do it this way. But God works in ways that are different from man's ways. And God is going to use a bad situation to free us. And this day is today. And for that, I want to be thankful and say a 1-minute prayer to thank God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God and our Father, we want to thank you, Father, for watching over this nation. We want to thank you, Father, for solving our problems in a way that man cannot. Father, we thank you for this opportunity. We want to thank you, Father, for these ministers who stole our COVID money. They stole it from the wrong person, and the thing is stuck in their throats, and they will all go to prison. Thank you, Father, and in so doing, they will liberate us. God bless us, Father, and show us the way. Amen.
Amen.
Because
Amen. We are also in the company of Professor Mark Antony. He is the chair of Panafricanist and also an ardent Panafricanist. We are glad to have you this evening.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Leo, and to my fellow panelists, and to the 1,000 million viewers of My Media Prime, and precisely Prime Hour. It is a pleasure actually being on platform today, and certainly this particular topic is of interest because it is actually helping to unveil a lot about those who are leading us, and to express the fact that we have a failed leadership in Cameroon, and indeed the time has come for it to melt down.
Okay, we also in the company of Dr. Ndimancho Michael. He is a lecturer in some of our higher institutes of learning in Cameroon universities. He's also a member of the civil society. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you so much, Leo. I must say that the opening salute of Dr. Nick actually spurred me, and of course I must say, I must square in to say that we are still celebrating the week of the Holy Spirit, and rather than saying Holy Ghost fire, sometimes the Holy Spirit is that which comes and quenches the fire, and then it brings forgiveness, brings love. And as I've often said, there is no salvation in Kondengi. Rather, I always prefer that the people should be repentant sinners, and like the thief on the cross of Jesus, and ask that Jesus consider them in heaven. So I pray they don't go to prison. I pray they pay that money back, and that Cameroon may be a better country. That said, I like to think about the people of Kumbu, particularly in Bui, who has been going through a lot of issues, untold suffering, especially since last week. And a lot of people have been staying out of their homes because they are running away from the military. And I think that it is time that we make amends and make peace. I'm thinking of this young boy Laban who was shot dead last night. He's from Kornoni, and a lot of people have been talking about it. A young carpenter who was trying to make his life and to be a future responsible and civic Cameroonian, and he actually made his Waterloo, of course, last night for something he didn't know about. So we keep on praying for our country and hope that our country may be better.
Okay, also with us is Doctor in Making Tilarious Atia. He is a journalist. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Leo. It's very intimidating for me to be sandwiched to find myself among professors, doctors, and especially in Bangfon, Dr. Ngwanyam. I want you to always use the title because he's a title holder from the Northwest region, the Bangfon title. I know he doesn't want to be referred to as a CPDM militant, although he's a card-carrying militant of the CPDM. Well, I'm not sure there's any card as such from the Central Committee of the party, but then I hope that this program will be enriching, and that at the end of the day we should understand the nitty-gritties of the issues of the day, especially the problems Cameroon has with the International Monetary Fund, to say that even after the report of the audit bench of the Supreme Court indicting some ministers for embezzlement, showing irregularities in the management of the funds, the IMF is not very convinced, and it is putting pressure on government to look for independent audit firms to go through the files of all those who managed money. For now, we have just 2 that have been indicted. Many more are going to be indicted because for now, the Minister of Finance is recruiting independent audit firms, many of them that can at the same time simultaneously audit the funds that were made available to the various ministerial departments, and also external services of the ministries. So you will not be surprised that some people from the regions will also be picked. They'll answer how they manage the funds. We saw people who received billions and all they could share were face masks of doubtable quality. I'm sure it's time of reckoning, like Dr. Nick said, and interestingly, it is a CPDM that is at the fore of everything that's happening.
Okay, good evening to you, Jack Shigo, Kinge Mbela, good evening to you, Rene Mwika, and to you, Etwe Gabriel Elung, Ricky Samuel, and to you, Deaconess Ngi, my classmate out there in GBHS Womb, and to you, Kimbi Diodune, Clovis Bex, Bawi Francis. Good evening to all of you watching us on social media. I'll start with you, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. COVID-19 came. The world was taken aback. Cameroonians were confused as to where to run to. Apparently, some people saw this as an opportunity to enrich themselves. If what what is presented already by the audit bench was anything to write home about.
Well, that's right. COVID-19 hit the world, out of nowhere, out of the blues. It just came on us. And you know that we in Cameroon, we have never been faced with that kind of a challenge, so we are taken aback just like anyone else. But people who had been exposed to Ebola and other things, probably they knew where to begin, but we were as confused as you can imagine. And so the evolution of the COVID and the management of COVID in Cameroon went through about two, 3, or 4 phases that we can identify, and in each of those phases there were blessings and mistakes. In the first part, as I said, you see the Minister of Health was doing his best, working with bare hands, and he had nothing. And we quickly put a couple of pennies together, 500 million from here, $1 billion from over there, and that money ended up in the hands of the Minister of Territorial Administration, who went around sharing some doubtful buckets, but at least he did something. And thereafter, there was a budgetary session where money was sliced from the national budget and made available to the Minister of Health. And then in the third, some money also came from MRC, which was rejected. And then the money in question now, was it 180 or 84 billion? I can't remember again. But all that 80, good, came from the IMF or World Bank or whatever. And that's where the vultures thought that they were going to do damage. And the good thing is that that money, you know, it's not like it's the first time these guys are grabbing some money for themselves. They've always been grabbing money that belongs to Cameroon and to Cameroonians. And because they were above the law, they knew how to tinker the law and nobody could take them to task. But this time around, they stole from someone who doesn't allow Alibabas in his house. And so it's like I keep this analogy is like when you eat fish and the bone of a fish is stuck on your throat and you've got to see the surgeon. That's what these guys are going through, and it's going to cost them a lot.
Okay, it's going to cost a lot. It is true for many persons to blame some of these ministers. Also, is it not also because they were taken by surprise? There was no time to meticulously organize how these billions were going to be used in reposting the damaging effects of COVID-19.
Mr. Leo, to an extent, I would say that for the fact that this was, let me say, cash, fresh money in the hands, not something that you need to go and withdraw from some. It is there in your eyes. There was a serious dimension of temptation attached to that money, which most of these guys were unable to resist. You see, I was going through all that which the audit bench actually produced, and I was a little bit shocked, where you saw the innovation of hospitals and all that, but with the money spent, when you go on the ground, you don't see any of those structures that have been innovated. The worst one is the fact that the Ministry of Research could declare that they can actually fabricate drugs in Cameroon. Then they go to India, buy drugs from there, come to Cameroon, change the packaging, claim that it is made in Cameroon. That is the highest dimension of scandal that Cameroon has ever engaged in. And you hear the fabulous sums of money that are being allocated to different issues, but unfortunately this was IMF. It's not just Cameroon's money.
Yeah, but this is not the first time IMF is giving money to Cameroon.
You know, the thing is that this particular money was supposed to be audited, and they knew it that it would be audited. I don't know, because they have been used to stealing, they did not know it is going to be this way. And you see, it happened in a way, I just want to say this is the way God just wants to use to
tell the world.
To tell the world how those who are leading us are very unpatriotic, and not only unpatriotic, in fact, money that is meant to protect the lives of Cameroonian citizens, people choose to swindle this money into their personal accounts. I also want to say, if you look at what the audit bench actually produced, you realize that from their report, it proves that it is a managerial issue, not just direct swindling of money. But when you enter into it, you ask the question, what is the difference with mismanagement of money and swindling? Because you can't inflate prices of things, then when we go to investigate, the things are not on the ground. So in this case, is it only these few ministers in question that we are talking about that will be picked up? I am thinking that 180 billion, which we are talking precisely, because 136 came from IMF, then the rest came through the money that we donated, Cameroonians donated. Put together, that makes 180. Did they think that this money would just disappear like that and people would just accept? Or were they not really believing that IMF, who gives the money, because it is not a gift, it's like they are lending this money to Cameroon, and lending it, they need it back, and they were out to audit to find out how it has been used.
No,
this is
we needed more. We needed more money. So
Mr. Leo, this is the terrible issue. Yeah. It's going to sink us deep to a state where IMF might end up writing budget for Cameroon, and it will bring us to a place where, at the end of the day, Cameroon will not be controlled by Cameroonians.
Okay.
And that is where we start asking, do these people really love this nation? That's proof of unpatriotism. They don't have love for their own nation.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. All the panelists, Dr. Nick and Prof. Akuhmbom, Dr. Michael and Mr. Tilarious. Dr. Nick's prayers was not easy one. From my point of view, ministers were not trapped, but it just exposed the level of incompetence that the ruling regime CPDM have. Bishop Andrew Ngwanyam already told the bitter truth that they are not different from scammers. Prince Rupert is writing from Douala. We are going to be revisiting that outing by the Archbishop of the Bamenda Archdiocese. Yes, in the days. Now, Dr. Michael, the minister, was it not a trap also for the ministers? Because maybe they thought that because it's the crisis, people may not want to investigate because they need to respond also from a crisis perspective.
You see, the ministers acted unlike the Israelites who had the hope that they were going to reach the promised land. They thought Cameroon is going to end with the COVID-19, but unfortunately it didn't. And you see, we received a lot of disgrace during this period of COVID-19 since 2020 till now. You realize the chief in the south who was given a bucket of water and a cube of soap by an SGO, and the chief stood and said, this is not what he's interested in. And when it went viral on social media, that was a disgrace that the whole of Cameroon actually witnessed. Now, the ministers in Cameroon saw the COVID money like manna. You know, manna is the food of the angels. It's an exceptional kind of food. It's the food of the angels. And therefore, they felt this was an opportunity for them to do as they usually do. You know, Cameroon, we have had a lot of scandals. And I want to take us in a retrospective look of some of the scandals that we have gone through. You remember in 1994 with the US Air Cup, World Cup in the USA, where money got missing between France, Paris, and New York. Up to now, nobody has given an accountability, and actually, you know, people lied on the Renouveau statement, which asked who saw the proof, and therefore they have kept on sleeping on that. Secondly, you know about the albatross, which of course some people went with about the sum of about $31 million, and many of them are in prison now. It was money that people just scam Cameroonians with, and they went. And like the Minister of Scientific Research with the drugs that was supposed to bring, the people went and put a new coating on an aircraft and brought to Cameroon, and it almost took the life of the head of state. So you know, that's the very thing. So Madeleine Chuete, the Minister of Scientific Research, was just doing a repeat of what happened with albatross, because people went to the US and brought a plane that was an old plane, but with a new painting. Now, we remember the issue of the 100 million of communication money when the Pope came to Cameroon in 2009, where a minister took the money and put it in his private account. And then thereafter, when the investigation was being done, he said if the money is the minister's account, means that it's still the government money. And that minister was compensated. That minister is now the Cameroon's ambassador to Israel. He has been compensated for that. So, you understand the enormity of what is happening. Now, let me go further. You know about the MR where people went and took aircraft coffins and brought to Cameroon. One from Masota at the airport in Simali last Saturday. And those, they took huge sums of money from the taxpayers for this purpose. And we have never seen anything to show proof of. Now, you know about the higher education vision of President Paul Biya with what he called the lap toys. I call them the lap toys, not the laptops. Where somebody went to China and brought those things. A simple toy that is supposed to cost 20,000 francs. They even said a quarter of 10,000 francs. He said one cost 100,000 francs. This is still the scamming. Now, we know about the Olympic Stadium, which is at the nose of the presidency, where money is being injected in that stadium, each day, and nobody is saying anything. But somebody wants proofs to know that people have embezzled. Now, it doesn't, it's not our wish again to give the proof. It is now the international community that has the proof. You know, Cameroon is a country of scammers, and it's a counterfeit country. And Plato described this kind of a country in a very, very subtle way in his book, The Republic. He says this kind of country is a country of criminals with the ass criminal at the top. And that is what is happening, because nobody gives an accountability to anybody.
You do what you do and you go away with. They have been doing all these things and nobody is asking for the accountability.
We have people in prison. How do you say? Can we have the video of President Paul Biya, who said that people were no longer going to be stealing as they please? Seemingly it's not really yes, but
so I was saying, Leo, yeah, of course we want people in prison. I've said the prayer of Dr. Nick was good, but I do not want people in prison. I want people to be able to pay the money back to Cameroonians, because we want that money for development. Now, you know, there is what we call the law of hypnotic rhythm, whereby you are compensated for each thing that you do, whether by an external force or even by your own conscience. And this is what we want. The people should go in for whatever thing that they are doing. And we have reached at the stage whereby Cameroonians need to come together. We are not even only talking about the CPDM, because people only think that it's a CPDM. We are even so the MRC. They had their own scope about the COVID-19 funds that they contributed, and no accountability is being given.
200 million.
And 200 million, and the party is tearing apart, you know, and people are going. It appears, as I said, this money of COVID-19, people thought we were not going to survive this COVID-19. They thought it was a kind of an earthquake that would just kill everybody. So you have to eat to your fill. And if you ask anybody whether this money is kept anywhere, I bet you that money was not kept anywhere. This money was taken out for juicy tours with gazettes around the country. And people have enjoyed their money. And I mean, family members, people have made their trip, they have bought their things and built their houses. That money is not anywhere. And I'm afraid it may only come like it will be as if, like Dr. Nee said, people will end up in prison, and that is not what I want.
Okay, good evening to you, Shalangum and Jack Raymond. Good evening to you, Daniel Fusi, Ricky Samuel Ngama, and to you, Bakala Foncha, always watching the program. Special good evening to all of you. Tilarious, Atia. Now, did some people actually lobby to be allocated chunks of money that came in from the IMF? Because how do we understand, like we said last time, that almost more than 15 ministries were allocated billions of francs CFA to fight for what COVID was the Ministry of Public Health not supposed to engage in national policy that would incorporate everybody?
Yes, Leo, just to say that COVID-19 is an international emergency at the time. And for Cameroon, that has not had the experience of managing such a pandemic, because we've had countries that have managed Ebola, for example, and they could better understand how pandemics are managed. But Cameroon, it was the first time, and for me, it was a trial by error mechanism that the government had put in place to see how to come out of the crisis. When the first cases were recorded in Cameroon in March 2020, the budget for 2020 had been voted back in November, and so the country did not have the capacity to cushion the effect of the coronavirus pandemic at the time. So the country that has a very bad record with loans, with managing loans from the IMF, the World Bank, and other places, and it was difficult for them to get money. But then, understanding that low-income economies, developing countries were facing shocks, economic shocks, the social fabric was collapsing and everything was not moving, the IMF relaxed the conditions to give out loans. And so Cameroon saw it as an opportunity to get money, well, somebody said for safari trips and others to embezzle. But then I think the money was needed to put the country back on its feet. And when Cameroon applied for this loan, the Minister of Finance, in a letter that he sent to the managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, I think on the 28th of April 2020, the Minister of Finance, Luipo Mutazi, made a commitment that Cameroon was going to judiciously manage the funds. In fact, he said they were going to produce semester reports, they were going to make public the list of or tenders for all the projects that they were going to give out to contractors, and that at the end of the day they are going to publish the list of the beneficiaries of these contracts, and that at the end of 2020 there was going to be an independent audit and the report will be made public. All Cameroonians will have access to the report. And so it's not as if anybody was caught unawares. Maybe government did not communicate, because it is the Minister of Finance that wrote to IMF, and this document has been published extensively by Jeune Afrique. So if the Minister of Finance writes and commits government and then does not communicate with members of government, then it's a problem. So when Cameroon asked Cameroon was given 258 million US dollars in May 2020. And in October, Cameroon asked for more funds. They said it's like this, the shock was too much, and they asked for 825 million US dollars. And out of the 285 million US dollars, the IMF gave Cameroon 156 million US dollars. And earlier this year, Cameroon asked for the balance, that out of the 825 million US dollars we asked for, you only gave 156. We want the 669 million US dollars that is left. And IMF said, hey, come on, we had an agreement that at the end of 2020, because the first quarter was given in May, 258 million US dollars, and then in October, 156 million US dollars. And the agreement is that at the end of the year 2020, there was going to be an independent audit report that will be presented, that the list of the companies that were awarded contracts will be presented, and that even the tender, the bids, the call for tenders were going to be made public in 2020, and the report will be presented. But as at now, the report was not available. So IMF said, hey, come on, we cannot give you more money. That is why you see there's a lot of pressure. And the minister, the Secretary General at the Ministry of Finance in February 2021 launched a call for tender for audit firms to come and audit the finances, because we're talking about 180 billion francs CFA that was put at the disposal of 23 ministerial departments. And as at now, just 19 ministers have answered present to be audited. They have gone to the special criminal court to answer questions there. Some of them are still very reluctant. Apparently, they feel that they are indispensable, or they are part of the sovereign ministries or something like that, and they feel that they need a special order from the head of state before they can go and answer questions. And for now, these ministers who have gone through the grilling process, they found 30 managerial errors that were made in managing the 180 billion. And this money, 71% of the 180 billion has been mismanaged, or the ministers did not manage it as the IMF and the President of the Republic, the Prime Minister, had given directives that this money should be managed. And for now, I don't know how it's going to go, because this is the money that is part of the National Solidarity Fund for the fight against coronavirus. And if Cameroonians cannot have a report, if the IMF cannot have their report, then Cameroon will be considered a delinquent, because it's not only about repaying, it's about using it well and keeping your engagement. Because when you take a loan and you commit that I will do this, I will do that, and at the end of 2020, Cameroon has never done one of the many things that they agreed that we're going to do. I think it's a problem. And just 2 ministries have been indicted for now, but I think many more are supposed to be indicted, because I don't understand the logic behind constructing quarantine centers on stadia when Cameroon was expecting to host the CHAN. And at the time those things were constructed and were delivered, the Ministry of Sports said, no, we want to use our stadiums, and those things were destroyed. So I'm sure these are part of the errors that were made. I don't understand why schools were closed, and most of our schools have dormitories. Why government did not solicit these dormitories to do quarantine? They prefer to use 5-star hotels. And today the bills are weighing down on government. We have rumor that people are protesting, those owners of these hotels, that they have not been paid. And if they have not been paid, how was the 180 billion francs CFA used that today we cannot present an account? So I think, like Dr. Nick said, Mbangfon, Dr. Ngwanyam said, it's time for reckoning. And I think the head of state himself, I'm sure, is very interested in seeing the results of this audit.
Okay, Grace Abundance, I got your message, and to you, Mumu Inclusam, good evening to you, Destiny Luleke, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. We are talking about the purchase of COVID-19 equipment, drugs, at the rate, because these things are all produced by the West now, and both the drugs and the equipment and almost everything. Was it possible to deceive those who are producing these things? with some of the inflated bills we are reading?
In fact, we sit in our small offices in Cameroon and think that you can deceive people in the villages, but you should know that your own wisdom stops and then some other person's wisdom takes over. Because when you don't want to be a gentleman and you stay in that your small hole and small village, and your small office, and you think you can kick people around, it's not, at the end of the day, you think you are kicking people around, but you soon notice that you are kicking yourself in the ass. Now, listen, those people, like you said, those things that we ordered and whatever, they know the prices. The prices are on the internet everywhere. You tap on Alibaba, you know what they cost in China. Then we get them in here and we put handling charges on it, freight charges, whatever. And I think most of the things even came in duty-free, custom duty-free. And we inflate the bills to an extent that is mind-boggling. Now, so when those people from the West, they just have to look at a few indices, and then they know something is seriously wrong. You remember the thermometer? What is that thing called again? The thermometer that was being used. What is it? That thermometer. I'm sure you all know it. That thing that looks like a gun. That's right. But when there's 180 billion, my head is confused. Now listen, that thing cost in China about $10 at most $20. Okay, and when there was a large demand in the nation on the market, on the open market here, it was 45,000 francs, 50,000 francs at most. But our government was paying 150,000 for each of those things. And you also know the story of the test kits and so on, thing that was bought for 7,000 francs and was sold to the government at 19,000 francs or something like that. So they are aware that something is going wrong. And it's just so stupid that we do these kind of things and think we can get away with it all the time. But like I said, this time around, God is not letting you off the hook. And number one, you will go to prison. Number two, you will pay back the money, and whatever you did with it will be confiscated. So you're going to be in some very deep shit. Like I'm just so surprised about. But there's something I don't understand though. There's something I don't understand. 180 billion. But when I look at the amount that was given to the Ministry of Territorial Administration, it's just 1.7 billion. Okay. But there were some ministries. But of course, we could see that Atanganji was on the field with some buckets left for center. At least we could see that something was happening. But there were some people who had 7 billion, 8 billion, and we never knew what they were doing with it.
That's also the question I asked.
What are they doing with it?
Yeah.
At least, even if we hold Atanganji, he can show us some buckets. What were the others doing?
And savon and
some savon and something. What were the others doing? I mean, and sometimes some ministry didn't even make sense. You take so many billions and go and give to the.
What was the Ministry of Finance going to do with COVID-19 funds?
I don't know. And another, the judicial something, the Supreme Court or what with billions. What are they doing with it?
Just to say, Leo, that the economy had a problem. The COVID-19 created a shock with the economy. So the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Economy needed money to sustain the economy, to cushion the effects of the economic downturn that came with COVID-19. You remember the Prime Minister announced measures.
They took money from what was sent?
The Prime Minister announced measures that the head of state had said there was going to be some tax suspension and those things, that they were going to give some help to some homes, some disadvantaged homes. This is money that government is getting from the special fund, because that was the special fund that the state had to run all of this. So the 180 billion was given to, a portion was given to the Ministry of Education, for example, because there was need to do continual learning. Children cannot be kept home for God knows how long. Nobody was sure how long the pandemic was going to last and how long
they used it to buy TV sets.
No, what we are saying is that in some countries, like in Turkey, for example, the government bought laptops and tablets for primary school kids, for secondary school kids. So they and then constructed online systems so that children can continue learning. But in Cameroon, we wanted children to learn online, but then they did not have the facilities. So I'm sure that the billions maybe was intended to construct a national online learning system, to maybe make data affordable for the students, and to ensure that they have the tablets. Like the Minister of Higher Education sometime bought Pobia Higher Education Vision laptops to ensure that the children will go numeric and like a social entrepreneur. Okay. You know very well that these university students were supposed to be meant to be entrepreneurs. Digital economy. The head of state said they should take action in digital economy. Okay. No, what I'm saying is that the money that was given to every ministry had a purpose. Okay. It is what we are discussing here is not whether they need to have the money or not. It is how well they have used the money.
Yes,
and that's the problem.
The President of the Republic said that people were not going to be stealing money, but that was long ago. Can we take a listen to what he said?
J'ai donné des directives au gouvernement, au Premier ministre, au ministre des Finances, au ministre de la Fonction publique, à tout le gouvernement, pour qu'ils montent d'un camp dans cette lutte. Nous ne pouvons pas lutter contre la pauvreté en laissant les gens détourner les fonds publics.
Okay, that was quite long ago. The president said very clear that people were not going to be stealing money. But how do we understand that 2021 we are getting what is today described as COVID-19 in Cameroon?
Mr. Liu, it is not because the president said they won't steal money again that they won't steal. You don't change the nature of a rat simply by keeping a trap. The rat will steal even when there's a trap. So the declarations of the president were so good, but the truth is that the people who are working with him are innately already oriented to steal at the little alarm of money, implying that anytime they see money somewhere, already they are moved to think of how they can swindle it into their personal accounts. You see, like Tilarious was actually trying to put to us, for us to understand, that the fact that this money was shared to ministries and even to the Supreme Court and other aspects of the government which we think that were not involved fully in the management of the COVID. The main reason behind that, like he said, which I support, is the fact that normally an economy needs to keep running, and I think that that money was given to, in one way or the other, sustain the economy while dealing with the particular pandemic. But like it is, and like I mentioned, Mr. Liu, we have ministers, we have administrators whom are prone to, let me use the word, embezzle the wealth, or say the money that is meant for investment for Cameroonians. And as long as that is in their nature to steal, you can't stop them from doing it. Even if you tell them that you will go to jail, we will jail all your children, we will kill you, some of them will still want to do it to find out if they are going to be killed. Because certainly it is obvious that they knew that this money will be audited. They knew. It's not something that came like a surprise. All of them knew. But the belief that they have the machinery put in place and how to manage this particular auditing stuff, so they can play their games, pay their way through, and it is done. But this time, the pressing nature of IMF, and also might be with the pressure from the president, you are seeing the mistakes they are doing, because certainly they were not expecting that will happen this soon. The Secretary General had said by the end of the year of 2020, there's going to at the end of the year there's going to be an audit. In fact, complete report. Question: end of year, nobody has shown up with any report. Why? Because it is normal to play along like that. Until when pressure started coming, till now as we are talking, the Minister of Territorial Administration has been summoned, but he has not shown up. He has not shown up because to him, that's nothing. And I want to say that we are talking about it's not any kind of person.
I'm sure it's too early to know if he showed up or not. I'm sure
so far as I'm talking,
the Supreme Court will present us their report on the Special Criminal Court to know.
He showed up today. Then, because in relation to
no, we cannot say when somebody has shown up or
so
not.
Anyway, if he has shown up, then that is very good. But as long as the week passed, nothing was done.
Okay.
And Mr. Leo, it is really troublesome and troubling, let me use that word, because we are talking about money that was made to protect the lives of Cameroonians.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like we are talking about money that was meant for construction of a road or reconstruction of the Northwest and Southwest. This is money that was meant to protect lives.
Borrowed money
for that matter.
But even those roads are still to protect life.
So no, we are looking at the direct issue, because it is a pandemic which is actually killing people, and this money was given to make sure that these lives are protected. But our ministers thought it wise that they should present empty reports without any proof of work in their reports.
Okay. Kumbe Fred from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Mr. Leo, and your objective panelists. When auditing and monthly feedback shall become regular and compulsory in Cameroon, many state scammers will escape. Okay, you mean won't escape? Valley, writing from Yaoundé, says, good evening to you all panelists. I think like the same punishment the Cameroon government gives to these young scammers should be given 100 times to these ministers, because they are trying to stop the promotion of scam, whereas they are practically examples of the highest order. So I think these ministers should be seized of whatever they own, going down to their family homes, like the African proverb says, the evil that men do live after them. To me, this proverb was to be reversed to be the evil that men do live with them, so they should pay dearly for whatever they have done. Okay, Veli, writing there from Yaoundé, thank you for contributing. Good evening. I think the problem with Cameroon is embezzlement. Even the set laptops wasn't given to all that were supposed to receive it. Even the fee we used to receive in the second year in the universities is more given. Only a few more receive it in the last year. Excuse me. Good evening to you all, the panelists. Mr. Liu, thank you for this interesting topic. The money was tied on a hook like a worm to catch langa fish inside a river, and all those ministers caught the langa fish. Amabo is writing from Boya. Hello, Mr. Leo and crew. Good evening to you all. Thanks for the topic under discussion. I think after the audit, heads should rule at all levels in the management of COVID-19 funds. People have tended to have no conscience even when it concerns health of Cameroonians, all because of greed. What a shame. I am Nancy, writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, and Nancy. Arresting them is not what we want. The money used be taken and put into use, like constructing of bridges and roads. Mr. Ernest, writing from Chang. Good evening, Mr. Kum. We need those money back. We do not care if they go to prison or not. They had been doing that, but this time around they will find it hot. They should be exposed on television so that the Cameroonian population to see them. Euba Felix is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Mr. Leo. And the prayers of Dr. Nick must be answered by our omniscient God. All those ministers concerned with embezzlement of the COVID-19 fund are scoundrels who should be apprehended and put behind bars. Mr. Atut Nicobel is writing from Owe in Muyuka. Okay. B. Lawrence Ngong says that writing from Bamenda, says, good evening, Mr. Leo and panelists on board your educative program. My special regards to Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. Yeah, he got it. Shame, shame. All embezzlers of COVID-19 should be forced by all means to repay the stolen money and finally be killed by public hanging. They are a disgrace. Herbert is writing from Bamenda, Dr. Dr. Ndimancho. Now, when we talk of a trap, when you are in ministry and suddenly you are given 7 billion, 6 billion, 3 billions, what would you do with it? Will you not be tempted to also want to touch it and later justify how it was used? Is that not where the error came from?
No, I don't think it was an error. You know, this money is like the public investment budget, that when it is given to the regions, it's given for specific purposes. I do not think that the IMF said, and then overnight, they felt they should send 180 billion to Cameroon. It didn't happen like that. Remember that we are talking about this COVID-19 and it's something that has touched the whole world. I want to quote Tilarious, the director of World Health Organization, who said, this time around, we must, leave rumors and get onto rationality. You know, it is a pandemic that has touched the whole world, and therefore nothing was made by mistake. I may have a contrary view of people who think that this money was given to have a kind of a push forward on the Cameroon economy. No, this was the time that the world was touched more than ever before, and they know that anything that happens to Cameroon, anything that happens to Africa, anything that happens to America touches the whole world, because this is a pandemic that you are not to fight alone, and therefore it was a time for the world to come with a concerted action, and that this time around there was no joking about it. And I think that the IMF has always been given something, money for economy and whatsoever to Cameroon, but this time around, and they felt, if they give you this money, if you dupe us as you have always been doing, if you scam us as you have always been doing, okay, you remain with your underdevelopment. But this time around, it is not an issue of Cameroon alone again. And therefore, this is the time that the IMF has to play Rosa Parks to say, this has gone so much for so long a time, and therefore we will have to hit our hand on the table and tell you, we knew what we have all been doing, but that was used to be internal issues. I've been enumerating a series of things here that Cameroon did that people overlooked. And nobody said anything about it. And therefore, to distribute this money to the different ministries, I think that it was well calculated, and that the ministries themselves, I'm sure that they made a calculation of what they needed to do with this distribution, with this quarter of the sum that each of the ministries receive. And therefore, and I'm one of the person who also think that, on the contrary, to think that they have already indicted, it is wrong. They are still under investigation. We have had cases in court whereby somebody is indicted for having embezzled 50 million and he ends up paying 10 million or whatsoever. So in Cameroon too, everything is possible. It could still be that the courts may not find them actually guilty for all those malpractice or whatsoever, but it could also be that in Cameroon, the impossible it's not of Cameroon. So we know that everybody in Cameroon can do anything and go free. So we have to, the COVID funds is a fund that Cameroon ministers needed to set up. And I'm sure that the bill has been wrong. That since ministers are sweating, you see them sweating and going up and down. I'm sure that this is the beginning of something for Cameroon. You know, something has to happen at a particular time for people to know that there is a start to everything. Then you can do your thing and go free for so long a time, but there comes that particular time, and that time is now. That the ministers in Cameroon will start giving accounts of what they have been doing. If they found that money, as I call it, was manna from heaven, let them know that subsequently, if they are giving something of that nature, they have to give an account of how they have used the money. We've seen ministers, it was a chain, you know, like territorial will go to the governors and give his own quota, the governor will go to the SGO, give his own, the SGO will go to the sub-GO, and that is how the chain was. And I'm sure that it was all glorious. It was all, peaceful with them. They knew that this money they're taking was money they could just use anyhow, and that they didn't have to give an accountability. But whereas, you see now, the time actually has come for them to be able to answer and tell Cameroonians how they use the money and whether they were on the driving seat and they were taking Cameroon to the Red Sea, or they were actually out to serve Cameroon and take to the promised land. This is the time that they really have to explain to Cameroonians.
This is the time they need to explain to Cameroonians. Many people really want to see justice prevail in this case. Tilarious, Atia, how do we get people satisfied with the way the funds were managed? And if some are found guilty, some people, many Cameroonians are of the opinion that they want the monies back and not necessarily sending the ministers to Kondengi. I don't know whether you believe in that. What could be the best way to punish those found guilty?
Well, I think there are two possibilities. For now, we are not sure if they embezzled or they mismanaged. Yeah, well, if they embezzled or they stole, like a CPD militant, Dr. Ngwanyam is saying, and then they can be forced to pay back. I'm sure the financial transactions they can trace, government can trace these transactions and get them paid back. If they mismanaged, the courts are going to fine them based on the damage they caused the government. These are people who have huge bank accounts, and I think that my opinion is that if they mismanaged the money or they embezzled, then it is greed. Greed, because we have some of these ministers who have never paid rent in their life, all their lives. The moment they left the house of their parents, they were appointed into government. They've been staying in government house. They've had a government car, government fuel, government driver, government security, everything. So I don't know what extra money they need, because their salaries are also very bogus. The minimum wage in Cameroon is 36,000 something francs CFA, and a parliamentarian in the country who earns 1 million francs a month. If you earn 36,000 francs, you take like 36 years to approximate the salary of somebody who will be in parliament for 5 years. So it means that those ministers earn even more. And if you go around maybe creating fictitious companies to award contracts to yourself through names that don't exist, then it is greed. It is greed, because we've seen how somebody chopped HIV/AIDS money as though they were eating popcorn, and they're in prison today, and there are examples of other persons who are in prison. And if it did not ring a bell to some of these ministers who were given the money for coronavirus, the coronavirus pandemic and the management, I think it's a problem. It tells us that we don't learn from the mistakes of others, and the head of state has to ensure that corruption is stamped out of this country by ensuring the implementation of Article 66 of the country, because nobody knows how much the head of state, for example, is worth. How much does he have? We know he has farms. We hear he has pineapple farms. He has this and that. How much does he make from those farms in a month? How much is he paid? How much are his allowances? Because we will not know if somebody is getting something extra from government if we also don't know how much they earn normally, how much they are supposed to earn. The ministers, I'm not sure any Cameroonian can authoritatively say how much a minister earns, how much is their allowance, how much is money for phone calls and all of that. But we know that this is so much money. So it is greed that has to be fought. And government took a commitment. I don't know why they did not live to their commitment. I'm sure if the balance of $669 million US was paid in 2020, I'm not sure government will be worrying itself to provide any report. It is because they need the IMF. The IMF was smart enough not to have given them the $825 million US they asked for in October. He only gave 156, hoping that they were going to keep to the promise they made on the 28th of April 2020, that they were going to produce semester reports, that the money will be transparently managed, and that the contracts will be awarded in a transparent manner. To date, it was not. I just saw a list of companies that would receive contracts signed by somebody who is already of late. So when Dr. Ngwanyam is praying that people should go to prison, I don't know if somebody who is of late, whose signature is on some documents, is going to go to prison. I was expecting that the Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation was going to present us maybe a Fibangras tablet, because all what I could hear from her is that people should consume Fibangras. I mean lemongrass. So if Cameroon was going to go to the lab and produce us some tablets that could replace the Fibangras, then it would have made sense. But then to go abroad and do the things that they are accused of doing, I think is very problematic. And I want to imagine that because these people make huge contributions to the CPDM party, they did not feel that there will be an audit. And also the fact that after the elections of 2018, we had we've not really had a holistic cabinet shake-up. And after the elections of February and March 2020, the local elections and the regional elections of December, people were anticipating that there would be cabinet shake-up. And so when these millions came, or the billions came to their ministerial departments, they were like, well, I've been here for maybe 10 years, 20 years. Given that there are new faces that are going to come up, maybe this is my last mandate as minister. And they were trying to save their retirement money. And because we know in Cameroon that when you embezzle in 2004, you will be promoted and even made prime minister or minister of interior and other things, and only be arrested like 14, 15 years later. So going by that analogy, they were assuming that, okay, whatever happens to this money, this is my last mandate in government. If I can collect this money, the moment I'm dropped, I leave the country. By the time investigations are done and I'm found guilty, I'll no longer be there. So I think that some of those who would have stolen knowingly, like Dr. Nick wants to say, some of them stole. Those who would have stolen, willfully stealing public money, maybe they had this in mind, that the next cabinet shake-up that is already on the president's table, we've had about 100 of them from Bonas on the social media, that this man is appointed this. Unfortunately, Dr. Nick has not been very friendly to the guys of Bonas. Maybe his name would have been on some of those fake cabinet shake-ups.
Okay. Mr. Leo, this is devilish and inhumane. If the money is not retrieved and the people involved be brought to book, we Cameroonians will go on a massive strike. Tambe is writing from Bonaberry. Okay, good evening, Mr. Leo. When they say the head of state paying me more, there is nothing to count when it comes to Cameroon. We will only talk and nothing will be done. All we need is prayers. Gerard is writing from the UK. Thank you, sir. Special thanks to Dr. Nick, who has been godly in CPC and still godly today. I stand for the judicial findings of this COVID money mismanagement. The accused have crucified Cameroonians as the Jews did to Jesus Christ. Okay. Oops. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Is Cameroon a sovereign state? How can our country yield to this type of pressure, exposing a whole system? The press should be held accountable for not investigative journalism. Linus is writing from Bamenda. Oh, you now accuse us. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panel Ayong from Kumba. This act is not new to our government. Officials, let me tell you which ministry has given a report for the budget they backed every year. So this is not new. Cameroonians rise up. We are poor because of them. Shame. I regret being a Cameroonian. No, you are blessed being a Cameroonian. God knows why he made you a Cameroonian. Good evening, Mr. Liu. And to your well-informed panelists, what else can I be doing by 7 p.m. if I'm not watching Prime Hour? Great debate. Special greetings to my classmate and friend Tilarious Atia. Folemu Divine is writing from K-Town. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm very sure that those ministers are hearing every comment from the young Cameroonians. Do they have human feelings? Whatever they are, the same people after taking what belongs to the Cameroonians will be caught and kept in hotels as usual. DK is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, DK. Good evening, Pakum. Is Charles Bond writing from Bamenda? I like the job you are doing in this country. Please, to make my night to be good one, give me the names of those ministers. Know what I will do to them. Wow. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Cameroon ministers have always been at the forefront of stealing public money, but this time around they should not be allowed to go unpunished. Sange Niba writing from Bamenda. Hi Leo, it's Jude Burden from Douala. Those ministers who are guilty of mismanagement of funds meant for COVID-19 should be flogged in the public and let them be forced to pay back.
Together, let's celebrate football non-stop for 50 days with the UEFA European League, UEFA Champions League finals. And from the 11th June onwards, you can watch the UEFA Euro 2020 in full live and in HD, commented on by our best experts on the Canal Plus Sports channels. And right now, the HD decoder is only 5,000 francs from the Access formula. Hurry to take advantage of it now.
France CFA. But then the average in Africa is 100 million francs CFA. So nobody says anything about it. So it is a generally agreed principle in Cameroon that the prices of everything are exorbitant, are extraordinary. Because a small stadium like that of Olembe, I call it small because we have bigger stadiums in Africa and other parts of the world that have been constructed in record time and at a very cheaper cost. And somebody talked about the sovereignty of Cameroon. Cameroon has been exposed to this point. Your sovereignty ends where you want it to end. if you cannot manage your internal problems, you don't have money to feed your population and take care of them, and you go cap in hand and beg money and make promises that you cannot keep. It's like a man who wants to make love to a woman who starts making promises. I think that this is how Cameroon appears, because at the time they made a lot of promises, and now they cannot meet the promises.
Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, Tilarious is raising lots of issues which I am going to ask you. Are we also where we are because of lack of accountability? We know of our public investment budget. The public investment budget of Cameroon was made public to everybody we know. Next year, nobody is going to readily give us an account as to that is telling the population what is done with the monies available in this country. He raised the issue. Nobody knows how much a minister earns. Nobody knows about the allowances. Almost everything is so opaque.
Yes, that's the problem of this country. And, you know, we could spend 1 week trying to enumerate things. But let me try to give you a summary of my understanding of what goes on. Like we've said before, if someone woke me from sleep and said, what are the problems of Cameroon on my fingertips, I would say that the first problem is the Anglophone problem. The second problem is the youth problems. We have abandoned youth and we don't take care of them, and they are poorly trained. That's why they are all over the whole place with no jobs, and PhD people screaming all over the whole place. And then our economy is not good. It's not good. It is very, not to say bad is an understatement. It is very, very, very bad. Our economy is not good. And, you know, underlying all of these things is bad governance. You know, that topic, bad governance, is a broad topic. Tilarious could talk to you for 2 weeks about it and it will never be done. Bad governance includes everything that we have been naming. And if we and of course, our agriculture is still very primitive. That's why we import rice and fish. Now, if we step out of this box and then try to ask our questions, what exactly has gone wrong? You will realize that we have been riding on the wrong rails, and 80% of the problems in this country are caused by Enam and Enam products. They are the ones. They don't understand management. They don't understand leadership. They have no clue about entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is how you solve problems efficiently and effectively. They just know commandement. They come and kick you in your teeth and tell you when to make love to your wife. That's all they know. And therefore, you know, it will be very difficult to try to run around the nation, try to correct this. It's like you know, a dam that has picked holes, and then you are trying to plug here, plug there, plug there. We just need to step out a little bit and do things differently. And one of those things that we need to do differently is to shut down Enam. Another thing is to shut down the Senate. They are wasting money. The other thing is there's that thing that we all call Social and Economic Council. I'm 64, getting on to 65 years. I don't know what they do. And then there is still another one. This living together, this bilingualism commission is another thing that is wasting money. We don't know what they do. And you see, let me give you a good example of opacity. You see, the Prime Minister the other day went down to Boya to burn some guns. That's a great thing. But let me show you where the opacity is. Because we are not used to transparency, they do things in a haphazard manner. When you are going to burn guns, you have to tell the nation, because before I even go into that, we should first realize that the authority in this nation belongs to the people. It does not belong to the Prime Minister or the government. It's to the people. And the people surrender that authority to those that are managing us. And therefore, you ought to be accountable to the people. It's very important. Each time you think that you are more important than the people, you get it completely wrong. And that's where things start getting wrong. And therefore, you're going to burn these guns. And it would have been a great idea to give us the statistics of the guns in your keeping and the types of guns and bullets and so on. And then tell us which of those guns and bullets you were burning and which ones you were keeping, and give us the reasons why you were keeping those. But they just showed us a pit that they lighted, and I can't swear that there were guns in there. Can you? If you swear, you must be an idiot. I can't swear that there was a single gun in there. Might be there were guns. I don't know what kind of guns. Now, why do you think that Cameroonians don't have a right to know what was in that pit? Why? They have to know, and they have to see the guns and say, look, we seized these guns from whoever. Then Cameroonians will all rise and say, no, this is a bad thing. Nobody saw a gun. But they have been showing us the guns in gendarmerie places. Okay, these are the guns we have collected. Okay, but show us the total number of guns with the statistics and so on. That is called transparency. Burn them and everybody would know, okay, next time we see a gun, we should send it over for burning. But nobody saw a gun being burnt. Now, and it's very important because we are very opaque in our management. Let us here and now understand that the guns, for instance, that are in the keeping of the gendarmes, the military and so on, they have serial numbers and somebody can give an account of that. But these other guns that were seized from people, they don't have serial numbers, or the numbers are jumbled up, we don't know what they are. And therefore they could keep some of those guns even with gendarmes, and those guns would end up in the hands of criminals. You know that it is some police and some gendarmes who are even selling bullets to criminals. So when things are not carte sur la table, there's bound to be a lot of trouble, and that is our management style.
Okay.
Everything is opaque. And that's a problem.
That's a problem. Good evening to you, Ebane Giselle, and to you, Elvis Mayeke, Bawi Francis Mbongama, Ishkobi. Good evening to you, Divine Akanji, Mumu Inclusam. Good evening to you, Ricky Samuel Edkin, King Mbela. Good evening to you, Spanish Montana, Anita Eno. Good evening to you, Roland Letier, Nene Alain. Good evening to you, Mbate, and to you, Mark Emos, Andy, Daniel Fusi, Jack Siglo. Good evening to you, Bison Manfred and Jack Raymond, and Abang Elvis Tambe, Ricky Samuel, and to you, Ekane Elvis. Good evening to you, SKKK Kelvino, Destiny Luleko. Good evening to you, Shelangum, Etwe Gabriel Elung, Mumu, Destiny, Benedict Mfosa, Kimbi Diodone, and even to you, Abdul Karim. Good evening to you. We always enjoy your inputs out here. And to you, Grace Abundant, Joseph Bisson. Good evening to you, Aqua Silly Armstrong, Sheila, Peace Book. Good evening to all of you, Lenu Emmanuel, and all of you watching us on social media. We're glad to know that you follow the program and also make contributions and even interact, debating on social media. Now, who should bear the biggest responsibility for the mismanagement of this funds or investment, if we may say so? If they were proven guilty, is it because this was also under the Prime Ministry and then now moved to the Secretary General at the presidency? Are they the key persons to bear the biggest of responsibility, or the organs that were supposed to ensure the monitoring of whatever was going on? Because if not of IMF, we would not be where we are. We would not even know.
Mr. Leo, in administration and leadership, we say that everything rises and falls on leadership, which means that if anything happens under a leader, the leader is the first person to answer to book. In this case, are we saying that we need to put the ministers or the Prime Minister or the Secretary General, the presidency? The first person is the president himself, whom we are supposed to be looking at. And considering the fact that there is total delegation in the administration of Cameroon, which we have the Prime Minister as the head of government, we are supposed to be looking at him as the first person in this case, so the target should be him. But from every finding, it proves that most of the happenings were in his absence. So in this case, it means that there are people who were usurping authority and actually maneuvering around the head of government, and in such a case, such people needs to answer to this particular call. So in that case, we are already putting the Prime Minister out of the question. So the rest, starting from the Secretary General of the state, who is at the presidency, he's supposed to be brought to book. We are supposed to look at the ministers in question. We are also not going to end at the ministers level. We need to go down. Their secretaries will find out, going down into their ministries.
Those companies that
all those who, you cannot imagine that there is an organization, a company that was created in February 2020 that was awarded. A month later was awarded a contract. You start asking questions. How could this happen? So we need to look around this, bring all these people to book. We shouldn't say that we are supposed to just look at the ministers. The ministers should go down. Those who were working with them should go down, because Mr. Leo, like it is called COVID gate, it is indeed COVID gate. It involves, it's a web, and unless it is cleaned, we will keep on going through the same thing. Mr. Tilarious just actually mentioned the various situations that have been happening in Cameroon. Let's even look at the tarring of roads. You see the amount of money that they use in tarring a kilometer of a road in Cameroon. It is money that could be used in tarring a complete road. You come again, look at the we are talking of 180 billion when there was over 300,000, I mean 3 billion, 3,000 billion, I mean, that was used when coming to the construction of stadiums. Where did it go to? If you want to go into it, you will find out that some guys thought, wow, we will feed fat on this. Yeah, and since they fed fat,
but why are we so concerned with COVID? It is true. IMF is putting that extra pressure for accounts to be rendered. We know of how much stadia around the world have been constructed and then taken. Comparatively with what is happening in Cameroon, we know of the scandals.
So, yeah. Okay, Mr. Leo, you look at it. The reason why there is so much pressure, it has to do with the words of our own ministers. Like Tilarious mentioned, the Minister of Finance
gave a word.
In writing. That's already a contract. It is going to be like this. Normally, the IMF is not, there are not some organizations in Cameroon that you can manipulate. So they are waiting and expecting that because they said so, okay, we are preparing to push them more money. But let's wait and see what they are going to do. You know what? They went again asking for the money without providing the reports, without actually showing how they used the money. Are we actually listening to these things well? Because
just to add that even after the audit bench of the Supreme Court and the Special Criminal Court have gone through to interrogate the ministers and have found irregularities, the IMF is still not convinced. They say they want an independent audit firm to produce an independent report. So that is where it's getting tricky. I'm sure Cameroon knew that after getting a few reports from the Supreme Court and all of that, the $669 million US was going to be given to them. But now
it is impossible.
The IMF says no, they need some more.
It is obvious that the reports that were provided, you can't see any truth in it. When you go looking at the fact that money was used in innovating a hospital, and you go to the hospital itself, the hospital is like nothing had ever passed there. What do you expect?
When the airport here, the airport in Douala was renovated.
Okay.
2 containers were renovated.
100 million.
Just imagine that a nation says we are going to provide or say produce drugs. Then the worst of it is that the plagiaries, they go buy drugs from somewhere, come fabricate their own packaging, then put it inside and claim that it was produced in Douala. When you see such a thing, where do you think we are going to? You think that IMF does not see all that?
Yeah, but I'm sure the minister also was strict, because in her report she says that the person in charge of this institute told her that they were capable of producing this and that.
She's aware. I know it's not my turn to have the microphone. I know it's not my turn to have the microphone now, but this is getting exciting. Now look, you are a minister in charge of a whole department for renovation, innovation, for whatever, for discoveries, for I don't know what.
And she's been there for close to 20 years.
You have been there for close to 20 years, and you yourself, you don't know how to write your name. And then you are blaming some other person. my dear, do you know what it means to take responsibility? In fact, you are telling us that you are not fit to be there. That's what you are telling us. And even the way you talk, she's so unconvincing when she talks, Vimba grass, all those kind of things. I don't know, honestly, I don't know where did she come from. It's just so crazy. And then you're telling us now that somebody tricked you. No, you're going to shit that money, man.
It's like, you are the head of your institution, and one dean tells you that in this department we are capable of this, and then the minister writes to the presidency, requesting for this amount, 1.2 billion for CFA, made available, and then she says, okay, since you said you can do this,
yes, let's do it.
Yeah, but
I think the most annoying thing is that the COVID-19 gave us a platform on which we could start things and be happening. Because if they actually had, look at this, I mean, Cameroonians should understand, you know, when we are talking about a drug, I think we don't have the capacity to produce the active component. So they would have imported the active component. Everybody would agree with us. Import the active component. But making those tablets, you know, get the cassava flour and so on, and mix the things just like you mix bread or puff something in that IMPM and then compress those tablets. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing to eat. Why is it so difficult? But you deceive people that you are going to start doing that, then you go buy the things that were made in India. That's very irritating.
Leo, that, for example, without publicity, iPhone is produced in China.
Yes.
But it's a US mark.
Yes.
The software, everything is from US. But produced in China because of cheap labor and every other thing. So maybe for the case of Cameroon, the minister had everything in Cameroon and they went to produce in China, in India or wherever for cheap labor or some specialty that we don't have, and then they bring back and do the packaging in Cameroon. Maybe that's a possibility, but I'm sure
she will explain it to the court.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to you all in the studio. All our ministers should be held accountable for their fraudulent acts and make sure that they pay all the money they embezzled, because putting them in prison without collecting the money makes no sense at all. Anyway, I can see that our prayers are working, because a divine cabinet reshufflement is taking place already with all the recent deaths happening in our country. Thanks, Mbosi. Albert is writing from Bambi League. Good evening. To you all in the house. I'm following up the program and I love it. A great job. Vanimore writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Embezzlement is like a breakfast to most Cameroonians, especially those at the higher positions. It's like a generational curse placed on some of us. Embezzlement is from the local positions to higher positions in this nation. We just need prayers to help deliver us from this national generational curse. Vitalis from Gusi in Tombel. Good evening, Mr. Leo and crew. A stadium in Ivory Coast cost 60 billions from start to completion, but Cameroon said they have spent more than 200 billion constructing the stadium here in Douala, and it is still incomplete. That's already money for 2 stadiums. Lord Chief for Rene writing from Bonaberry in Douala. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Please tell Dr. Nick the first problem in this country is France. Thanks. Jambrin George writing from Mombo. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. In fact, your program is always interesting. Mr. Leo, you can't imagine that in most hospitals there are not test strips, and they want people to take vaccines without doing the test. It's that normal that there is scarcity of test kits. Then the so-called ministers responsible for the running of the COVID budget are doing. In fact, God will judge them. Caroline writing from Bamenda. But Dr. Nick, I don't know, it's Dr. Ndimancho was supposed to talk, but see, you are a medical personnel.
Yeah.
I want us to look at the huge amount of money that was sent down to Cameroon to fight COVID-19. The most exposed persons are the medical personnel.
Yeah.
We've heard of test kits, equipment, ambulance, and but we are not told how much was set aside for these guys. They are the first line actors in contact with potential frontline workers.
It's very, very unfortunate, and when I'm saying it, I say it with tears in my eyes, because, you know, when it came to the fight against the COVID disease, just like as an analogy, you would see the fight against the Amber Boys in the Northwest and Southwest is the military that is there. And therefore you have not even the generals, those boys that are carrying the guns, that are going to the bushes to fight the Amber. you can imagine the risk they are putting themselves to. It's exactly the same thing that is happening in the hospitals, where you have the doctors, the nurses, the cleaners, everybody putting their lives at risk to save the nation. But these people were abandoned to themselves. Nobody looked after them. They were kind of like just abandoned to themselves till today. Some of them died infected with COVID, and I don't think anybody even has ever asked what has happened to their wives or their kids. It's very sad, and I think as a nation we should pray for our health staff. We should support them and realize that they go through very difficult times, putting themselves through a lot of difficulties for our sake. It's very, very important for us to realize that the health personnel in this nation are taken for granted. In fact, like I was saying somewhere else, this nation stands on its head or something, I don't know. Technicians of all sorts are not respected in this country. In this country, you need to be in commandement and you are respected. Imagine the COVID thing came. Great. At the end of the day, the bulk of the money was in the hands of the minister, who is not a health personnel, and he thought he could do whatever with it. But imagine that on the field, you see what was happening on the field for starters was in the hands of the Ministry of Territorial Administration, with SDOs and DOs running all over the whole place, trying to talk about viruses when they understood nothing about it. So you see, we mix up things. We get so mixed up, and when we get mixed up, it's not fair. Again, we have hurt the health staff, and I think it's time something symbolically be done for this staff to encourage them. It's very important. Thank you.
Leo, just to contribute something which is really pressing. Can you imagine that Cameroon received gifts? These test kits, they were gifts to Cameroon. A minister collected them as gifts and then turned and sold them back to Cameroon. Then took the money and kept in his personal account. Okay. It was until when the Prime Minister had to hit his hand on the table.
Okay. Now we are
kind of minister.
we are looking at sanctions. We are looking at accountability. Dr. Ndimancho, are you seeing an imminent cabinet shake-up? And were you also expecting some ministers to have resigned because of what is happening, or dismissal?
Of course, we think that those who are render accounts to their people always feel guilty when they commit what we call footload. You know, serious faults committed in executing your duties to your people, which of course you yourself feel that you committed the errors. The noble way that an Englishman does is that he just resigns. But then, how would people resign? How would ministers resign? When we have heard a government spokesperson, a former minister of communication, who is still a sitting minister today, say he renders accounts only to the president of the republic and nobody else. I mean, I'm talking about a minister who at the same time is the president of a political party. And then I'm asking myself, if you should say that as a minister in Cameroon, what does he say to his militants? That he renders, he is a despot, and that he doesn't need to render account to any of his militants. And it is a shame. And therefore, when we, there was the issue of the albatross. I see talk about a person like Marafa Amidu Yaya, who is in prison now. I was chanced to follow up the court proceedings. And you know what? There's one startling thing that happened in court. And because when the judge asked Marafa to give his proof, because he accepted that money, of the albatross, actually was money that was disbursed, and he was embezzling one way or the other, and seemingly that money was sent somewhere, either to the presidency or to wherever. And the judge asked him, where are the proof that this money was sent to this particular person, to the president or whatsoever? He had no proofs, and that is what our ministers are going through. You know, you are enticed, you are forced, you are coerced to do something. You respect somebody somewhere. It's just that we were talking about this issue of the COVID funds. You find the Secretary General of the Presidency gives order to the Prime Minister or to a minister to provide a report. Who is the Secretary General of the Presidency? He is supposed to be in charge only of the Secretariat of the Presidency. There is no binding law in Cameroon or any or whatsoever that says that the Secretary General of the Presidency is a boss of a minister in Cameroon. Even though in court he is ministre d'etat. There is no way in this country where he's supposed to be the boss of the prime minister or of any minister, and then he signs a decree, and one moment they say the president has delegated powers to him, or that he says that the president, under the instruction of the head of state, this minister has been asked to present a report on the COVID response. Can the president do a decree? Can he not sign a decree? Must he pass through the Secretary General to be able to say this? And you see, this is how people use powers. And that is why the Marafa Amiri Yaya was not able to defend himself, because you take money and go somewhere else. So we need to give accountability. But how can we give accountability if we issue this kind of despotic statement to say that you render accounts only to a particular person? The President of the Republic appoints you to serve Cameroonians and not to lord it over them. And I think that if you are at the position of serving Cameroonian, you need to be able to give account. I have an impression that we Cameroonian government and the minister, they are all playing to the gallery. They want to play to the external world and to show what they are doing, which in effect, it is not what they are doing. It's like the empty basket of the Grand National Dialogue. That's what they are doing. That they want to give to the international community the impression that they do not, that nothing. I mean, you see, that is even like the talk about the burning of the arm. That was just to give to the entire, and they say they are silencing the gun. And the very time they are silencing the gun, they are killing a lot of people, and that very region, and that very town, that very day. So we begin to see that people have to take responsibility. Don't say tomorrow that you were asked by this particular person to do this, because you have to take full responsibility of your ministerial department and give a report. How I wish we were in a country like Europe or America, where at the end of each day or each week you are supposed to send a report to either to the presidency or wherever, to be able to say and give an account of how your day responsibility, how you run your day responsibility. I think it's very, very important that we have to get all this facts. And you see, the Minister of Health suddenly stopped giving statistics about the COVID deaths and whatsoever. Automatically, when they announce the audit, the man stopped giving statistics. Is it that because they announced the COVID, people stop dying or people stop being infected by that pandemic? So we are not serious. The fact is that we should take full responsibility of our responsibility. When you are appointed as a minister, you are appointed not as a functionary, but as a civil servant to be able to serve Cameroonians. And I think that until we get to that, nobody accepts to resign in Cameroon. We have had a few cases of those who have resigned, and of course some have resigned and they are regretting. They still come back to work with the government in different ways, and you find that they have not even changed their ways of doing. So in Cameroon and Africa as a whole, the issue of resigning from their post because you have committed an error is an issue that is illusory. I mean, it's a far-fetched, because people think that when you are appointed, you are not only appointed for yourself, you are appointed to serve your family and serve your village, and therefore when you are resigning, it's as if you are surrendering that responsibility that was given to you, and that your village people or your family is going to ask you questions why you didn't stay there for longer. I remember there is somebody who failed to be appointed and he refused the appointment, late Professor Bole Butake, who refused the appointment, and I saw somebody wrote a very long write-up and said, Professor Bole Butake, you did a very, very wrong, bad thing to refuse to be appointed, because you know, if you were appointed, I mean, you're supposed to have a cook from your village, you're supposed to have a driver from your village, you're supposed to have a bodyguard from your village, and then to the people of that particular village, it was like, I mean, they were baffled, you know.
It missed opportunity for them.
For them, it missed opportunity for them. Means it was not being appointed to serve the country, but most importantly, to serve the people of the village.
Regional balance.
Regional balance, as we call it.
Okay, greetings to the panelists and lovers of Prime R. Our best program in my media, Prime TV. Dr. Nick saw this coming a very long time ago and said the money will solve a lot of problems in Cameroon. So surprised to hear that a thermoflash sold in Cameroon for 45,000 francs was bought out of the country for 150,000 francs, 3 times Cameroon price. The price of everything is Alibaba, Amazon, or Google. Let them keep on faking the prices. Sumbele Kelvin is writing from Kongsamba. Good evening to you. Daisy writing from Kumba says, good evening everyone. I'm missing a lot. No electricity here for 2 days now. Oh, too bad for the guys in Kumba. Ngulefak Anastasia also writing from Kongsamba says, good evening Mr. Liu. In fact, your program is very interesting. Dr. Nick is not only a doctor but a very powerful, inspirational speaker. Let God continue to give him long life and more wisdom. Ngulefak Anastasia. Okay, thank you. Hi Mr. Liu. Good evening to you all in the studio. today we see in this country is lack of leadership, and the ongoing leadership tussle between the Prime Minister and the Secretary General at the Presidency is the major reason for the massive embezzlement of COVID funds we are facing today. The President must assume his function and call his ministers to order, without which these ministers will always steal state funds. KB Valerie writing that is this also the problem where some ministers do not really know where power is coming from? Either the Prime Minister, we saw this task force to fight COVID-19 taken from the Prime Ministry to the Secretariat at the Presidency. Is that not also where there is a problem?
Well, I think that those things are clearly spelled out. Like Dr. Ndimancho was saying, I wanted to differ with him when he said the Minister of State, Secretary General of the President of the Republic had no powers to instruct ministers. I think that was not the case. In this case, he was asking the Minister of Supreme State Audit to ensure that an audit takes place. Because the Minister of Supreme State Audit, for example, is lodged under the Presidency. It's like a branch of the Presidency. The Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Public Contracts. These are ministries that are lodged under the Presidency. So it means that in one of his functions, he has some powers to check how those things are happening. And the Cameroon runs two-tier system. The head of state with his own people, Minister of Special Duties, Minister of State, Secretary General, and others who don't attend cabinet meetings chaired by the Prime Minister. We have the Prime Minister who is outside, who is head of government and heads a government that is outside. The head of state heads his own government that is inside. So it is difficult to say when somebody tells you that the head of state has said this should happen. You who is outside, you cannot independently verify if it's true or not. You simply have to obey until whenever you meet the head of state himself, and I'm not sure you have the authority to ask him that, Pa, did you say we should do this? No, I'm not sure. So it is very complex, but then the laws, they are laws. People should be guided by the laws. And when you ask that who should take responsibility, I think criminal responsibility is individual. It's not the Prime Minister to atone for the sins of a minister who said they were going to produce medicine and they did not produce it. It's not the Prime Minister who said people should embezzle. Somebody said it was France that is causing problems. France did not ask ministers to embezzle money. At this point, I think the parliamentarians should also resign, collective resignation, because they have an oversight, apart from voting laws, they have the oversight function of checking government action, to check how the state is functioning, how the government money is spent. The budget they vote in November, they have to, in the course of the year, find out from ministers. Each time they come, they should ask for reports. We saw how, I think the Director General of Niger Data Affairs in Nigeria collapsed in front of Parliament. Yes. When he was being grilled, the documents were there, the expenditure, everything. It is not for you to write a question and send to a minister. He takes all the time and gives his collaborators, they prepare answers, and he comes and he's reading. That, oh, they will call you, the Speaker of the House will call you, you go and read what you sent to him already. And then you start doing drama. No, the time has passed for Cameroonian members of Parliament to be doing drama every day. Drama year in, year out. And we are seeing no results. Members of Parliament are the ones heading the regional follow-up committees for investment projects. We are not seeing the results. Nobody has been held accountable by those commissions. They don't communicate. A government that doesn't communicate. I think that the crisis we have in this country that has spiraled into into an armed conflict is because government failed to communicate. And even now, they are still not communicating. Government is not telling Cameroonians that at this point, this is what we are doing, this is what it is. And Cameroonians should be aware, because when you have information, you can know how to take decisions that impact your life. And parliamentarians should resign. They should resign because they have not been able to check the ministries to find out that you are sharing buckets. What was the description? You were given money. What was the description? Because we had healthcare personnel in this country crying that they did not have the PPIs. They did not have the equipment to protect themselves. So how come 180 billion was made available and doctors could not have thermoflash, they could not have the personal protective equipment? Some of them were dying. Others could not even have access when they got infected. They could not have access to the oxygen. They could not go into the intensive care units because there were no equipment. So it's a collective responsibility that the country should bear. And when Chiruma says that he owes responsibility just to the head of state, I don't want to be devil's advocate, but he's correct. He's correct because Cameroonians gave sovereignty to one person, the head of state, President Biya. And the constitution gives him so much powers that he shall appoint to from civil to military positions, he shall appoint even subdivisional delegates, because the people you call DOs are like subdivisional delegates in the Ministry of Territorial Administration. The head of state appoints them, and the constitution gives him that power. He can appoint anybody to anywhere, and those people are there at his because of his benevolence. If tomorrow he says that he's dropping you, the constitution says that he has a right to appoint you today and drop you tomorrow. So people think that when you please him and not Cameroonians, you'll be there. We have people who have been there for 14 years, 20 years, and like Dr. Nick said, somebody will be in a ministry for 17 years as minister, and they don't know that this ministry does not have the capacity to produce medicines, and you go on public TV, you organize a press conference without meeting your collaborators or even doing trials. Because sometimes before you come out to say you can do something, you do a simulation. You do a trial and you come and present to the Cameroonian people that this is what we can produce and this is what is happening. So I think that parliamentarians should collectively resign, and the ministers who are involved should also resign. And I think that it should be a cleansing process for the Cameroonian people. And the CPDM, where Dr. Nick is militating, should also come out and apologize to Cameroonians, because all of these people are their militants.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu and the crew. I am Emmanuel, writing from Kumba. They stole the money to finance the war in the Northwest and Southwest. Let them all, go to prison. Good evening to you all. I love the program. It is very educative. For my own suggestion pertaining to the misuse of COVID-19 funds is that the ministers involved should not be judged by any arm of government. Tung Betran, writing from Buya. Messages. Greetings, Mr. Liu and crew. More grace to you and team. Titi is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Titi. Good evening, gentlemen. Joseph Limbeck. Cameroon is functioning like a failed state. Everything is running into crisis at all levels of public service. It's night time. The entire system in place should be flushed out. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone in the house. My own idea is that let the minister give all the monies before going to prison, because enough is enough. To the money is too much for them to embezzle. It's Annette writing from Mutengene. Stop the calls, please. Greetings, Mr. Liu, and to the entire panel. It's Felix Presto from Obilia on the great topic of discussion. Well, I think the Minister of Health and other personnel who were at the forefront of COVID-19 crisis is supposed to give a full account of how every budget given to his ministry to manage the crisis in Cameroon was spent, and if unable to give a genuine account, he should be sent to Kondingi as soon as possible. But now, the Minister of Public Health is indexed here, but the strings, the others were coming from above. We know that the task force for COVID-19 was launched at the Prime Ministry, and then moved to the presidency. The Minister of Public Health seemingly was just receiving accounts, and it would appear he made that abundantly clear during his grilling that most of the instructions were coming from those who were heading the efforts to fight COVID-19 in Cameroon. But you say that this is going to mark a new beginning for Cameroon. Is that the revelation from the crystal ball you've been talking about?
Yes. It's the revelation from the crystal ball. And things have just been set ruling. And I must say that there is this blame game, this ping pong. I mean, you are aware that when ministers and governors or whatever, when they fail in their duties, sometimes when they are talking to the population, they say, we'll go and tell the president, we'll ask the president, or we'll do this, and they keep involving their president. And one of the ones that shocked me most when the Speaker of the National Assembly, who was second in command, he went off to the north and couldn't even answer the people on the floor, said he was going to tell the president. It's very sad. Everybody accuses the president, but when they come to stealing the money, they don't ask the president. Are you saying that the thing? There's so many billions, but when they're throwing the billions around and pocketing them, they don't ask the president. When it comes to providing tap water for a village, they say they'll go and ask the president. That's a sign of irresponsibility. And I must say that you are made the Prime Minister, and you are giving the resources, and you are responsible for those resources, or you're not supposed to be blaming any other person. So to say the Prime Minister will not answer questions about where our money went to is not correct. The thing is this: when we function in Cameroon or in Africa, we fail to respect principles. We think that we can beat principles around and get away with them. No. When God made this earth, He made it function on principles. There's no question. You cannot, water doesn't flow upstream. It flows downstream.
Yeah, but not only the Prime Minister, we have the Secretary General of the Presidency.
Leave the Secretary General of the Presidency. Let's deal with the Prime Minister. Let him solve his own problem. We know that he's the head of government. Either you are the head of government or you are not head of government. You cannot be, dangling. Either you are head of government or you are not. So as of now, he is responsible for all the money and all the resources that were put in his keeping. The major national dialogue failed because he failed to listen to advice, and he did his own thing, and he came up with some crap thing. That's why the war is continuing.
No,
so
is it not also the same issue where
if you are appointed,
he takes some decisions and some other decisions are coming from the presidency? Yeah.
Wait, Mr. Kum. Listen, if you are appointed a minister, a prime minister, a governor, or whatever, and someone else asks you to do something that you think is not logical, that is not acceptable according to God's principles, resign. What's difficult? You cannot be doing the wrong thing, then you turn around and then you are blaming someone else. It's not possible. Either you have the power to do it or you don't have it. And if you don't have the power, go tell the people that you don't have it, and then pack your bags and go home, and then we'll put someone else. This thing of not doing things, spinning around and doing the wrong thing, then turning around to, no. The tongue est passé. And you asked me to know what is going on. And I've been saying this thing at Tilarious. The time has come when the playing field would change. All right, and when this playing field changes, we are going to see a lot happening. The Cameroon you are seeing today, you will not see it tomorrow. It will be gone. It will be gone. God's ways are not man's way. We cannot continue to suffer. The Cameroon you are seeing today will be gone. I mean, tell me one other nation in the world that has 350 political parties. It doesn't exist. We are fake. So, counterfeit. All these fake things will go. And because it is, the Bible says, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Write it up and put it boldly like that. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But a lot of people who are church-going Christians, so to speak, Sunday Christians, they think that it's a joke. No, God's word is not a joke. That's how it works. Either you know the truth and live by that truth and it sets you free, or you go against that truth and it will nail you down the road. You cannot run away from it. And what has been happening is people have been joking with that truth and tinkering with the truth and thinking that just because they tinker with the truth, it's very funny. There was something, the other day I was thinking about it, I laughed. May his soul rest in peace. You remember 2 years ago, just after the major national dialogue, I know my brother at the Guardian Post, they cooked up something to say that the Prime Minister was the first because he did very well in the major national dialogue and he beat the Cardinal so many points. That made me laugh. Now, it is about the truth. And the truth shall set you free.
Okay, Dr. Nick, the truth shall set all of us free. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Cabinet shake-up or not, and nothing changes. The same people will be there from the same administration. It's writing from Kumba. Mr. Tabu says, good evening, Mr. Leo. All I can do is only to keep praying for Cameroon. In my opinion, the CPDM militants should learn to listen to Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick prophesied this trouble coming some couple of weeks on this platform, telling the regime that the COVID-19 money was a trap that will expose their dirtiness, but they gave a deaf ear. Today it's happening. Asha, Cameroon. Okay. Patabu from Bomela. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Kum. And your panelists, these very embezzlers we are now talking about have made so many Cameroonians to understand COVID-19 to be a political pandemic and not a health challenge. That is why many put on the face mask only when they approach a police checkpoint when traveling. Boni is writing from Boya. Good evening, Attila Bertrand writing from Bamenda. I really appreciate your program. It is very educative to Cameroonians. I pray most of our authorities should follow up your programs and realize that we love this country passionately and correct most of the bad attitude. God bless Cameroon. Thank you very much. Stop calling, please. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I don't understand how leaders will embezzle money and the same country is heavily indebted. This is enough evidence that the leaders are there for their stomach and not the people. Marcellus Penzini, writing from Fumbot, Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's not strange thing to hear ministers embezzle billions of money, but what do you expect when the president himself is ravaging the wealth of the country in France in the name of medical trip? Michelle, writing from Douala. It's been long. The president left the nation out yes, for those treatments. Yeah, because that's what you're writing. I don't know when the president went for medical trip. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Mr. Leo and the guests in the studio. To me, the ministers were not trapped. Unfortunately, they lacked foresight. Old habits die hard. This time around, it happens to be a time that most Cameroonians have eyes wide open, and effects of social media is equally doing jungle justice on them. They fail to account for the 4,000 bags of rice given to relieve hunger during this pandemic period. So is indeed in their blood. Derek Wala is writing from Chang. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Ask your panelists why the second part of the national anthem that was instituted during the federal system has not been considered up to date. Answers, please. Jevin is writing from Limbe. Thanks. Stanley Ba says, good evening, Mr. Leo and the panel. I want to thank the person on your right because he is really hammering on the points. Cameroon government will borrow money to help Cameroonians about the COVID-19, but people who before being ministers had nothing but appointed ministers grow with mansions, fleet of cars, while poor Cameroonians are dying daily. Let the hot hammer be put on them. Thanks. May God bless my media prime and the staff. Bar Stanley is writing from Kumba. Okay, it says the person with the white shirt. Is there need for a cabinet shake-up in the days ahead? Or everybody has to account for what was given to them before that?
Mr. Leo, trying to actually reshuffle the government or say do a cabinet shake-up, who means that we are actually letting go of some criminals, except they are supposed to be held from leaving the nation. If they are actually dismissed from the government, they should be stopped from leaving this nation, and their passports should be seized, so that if in case somebody else is supposed to be cleaning the shit that they have created, the mess that they have created, then they should be there awaiting to be tried. And apart from that, Mr. Leo, I think that to the best of my understanding, the way to go about this thing is not to change these guys. Let them clean up the mess and let them pay the money before they are actually given that dismissal letter, and if possible some of them should be imprisoned, because that is the way Cameroon does it. But if you look at it, what I know, corruption from its base is a crime. Corruption is not just a crime, it is a crime against humanity, because that is actually stealing the sovereign money. It's treason. And the way treason is punished in most nations, it is with death, implying that if you commit treason, you are supposed to be killed, because you acted against, in fact, you sold out a nation. If you go to a place like China,
no, but I hope you are not implying that we are advocating for people to be killed.
No, I'm just simply saying that if you have to follow laws of nations, and I think even in Cameroon, treason is punishable by death. If I am not right, you should correct me on that.
Are you saying they should be judged in military tribunals?
You are not saying the need for a cabinet shake-up. We have just 10 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Leo, and this to me is a human right abuse that should be treated with serious. There should be seriousness in dealing with it. It's not just a matter of pushing them away. They should be treated with seriousness, and not just removed and kept aside and different persons placed there. No.
Okay.
We should deal with them categorically.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo and the entire crew. I think Dr. Nick have a personal problem with ENAM. Ask him if he has even been to ENAM, that he knows how ENAM functions, that he wants to dissolve it. I think you should study ENAM well before making such misleading presumptions. The backbone of Cameroon is ENAM, no doubt. Let him get closer to it. he will understand more about it. Lekunze Clinton, advocate of the voiceless in Lekunze. You brought this our discussion in the forum. Yeah. Yes, Lekunze Aminati Kemgu says you should get something from Dr. Nick on your way back to.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
Aminati wants to buy some beer.
Yes, but we are looking at this issue. What should be done so that Cameroonians want accountability? There is money still available at the level of the International Monetary Fund.
669 million.
Yes. So this sanction should be done as fast as possible, irrespective of what he is saying, because we need the money to continue the fight.
Yes, rather than talk about these sanctions to be done as soon as possible, I want the report to be rendered public as soon as possible. Let us know exactly, because there's this presumption that people have embezzled. Let us see it clearly done, because we have even seen some issues on social media. I'm doubting the authenticity of what we are seeing on social media. Let it be brought clearly by the competent authority. But then I just wanted to comment here that sometimes we are just talking about IMF, forgetting utterly the person who started this issue about the audit, this Honorable Ninche of the SDF. He started this thing. It's just that raising those issues. Although people have discredited him to say that there are those companies that were not chosen for supplies and whatever in Cameroon that are now pushing him, but he did something, and this is what we expect of an opposition party. And like Mr. Atia was saying, that the parliamentarian will need to take them to task. That is true, but this is an example of a parliamentarian who utterly raised his voice, and something is happening. But the only fault that we have is that we must hear from across the board before we know that something is serious. We needed to hear from the IMF, but this is something that Honorable Nature started, and he utterly hammered on it, and whoever came to hear heard it. And therefore, I think for Cameroon actually to be that ideal country that we want, that Eldorado as I'll call it, let that Article 66, we have very nice articles that we don't implement, of our constitution, I think that if we knew, if you are you are appointed as a minister and we know what you have, then we will be able to assess you at the end of your mandate. If you have been there for 20 years as a minister, at least we should know what you actually had each year and at the end of these 20 years. Let me tell you that in the reign of Amadou Ahidjo, Adamunda Mjoya, may so rest in peace, in 1979 went out to borrow 100,000 francs as a minister. As a minister, he went out to borrow 100,000 francs. What has become wrong? What is wrong now with us, with the ministers of today? Is it that we have become, misers? Those who just want to see money and then we are just happy looking at it, that we cannot even spend. And that is where the problem is. And I think these people, as Prof said, they should cleanse before leaving. And to me, as I say, I still insist, prison is not a place for them to go. I think that they have served Cameroon. Let us accept. They have served Cameroon. But then they blame. Sometimes we talk and we forget. The branches cannot wither when the main stem has no problem. I think that at the helm of this government, there is somebody whom we should hold accountable for what has been going on in Cameroon today. And I think that when we start from there, when the top is leaking, we should expect the under to develop rust. So, and that is what we are talking about. That the New Deal. Government of Dr. Nick. Le Renouveau. You people, well, you are progressive now, but you people, you still have something to contribute. Let us start from there and say that that party called CBDM should be wiped off. That is where we should start. That when we wipe it up, that just like a CNU, that when extinct automatically, I think the CPDM should automatically go, and then we start building a new country.
Dr. Ndimancho, let's not be erroneous. The CNU was not extinct. The CNU met in Congress, and the name was changed to the CPDM.
Of course, because of the vote. It went off automatically. Do you hear about it?
So it did not go extinct.
No, let me tell you that those who
registered anyway.
Now after that, those who
papers to show that they were
Mr. Atia, let me tell you that after that, those who talked about the CNU, you were likened to Ahidjo, and they didn't want to hear that. You should understand the effect that happened.
That's the debate for another day. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Your program is the best. Dr. Nick, thank you very much. This one says these same ministers, those promoting the war in the regions to stay in power, they keep on creating the fight. John is writing from good evening, Mr. Liu. I really appreciate your program. is the best, and those taking part. Special greetings to my role model, Dr. Nick. He may have forgotten me. God bless you all. We Lewis from Bamenda, Ground Zero. Councillor Lewis. I don't know whether he says you have forgotten him, Dr. Nick. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It is the last stroke, just like Dr. Nick would put it. I mean, the embezzlement of COVID-19 funds. Cameroon is on the verge of change. Not too long. Reverend Ju is writing from Pinin. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I really like the topic of today's keep on. Genesis Nchi, writing from Fumbot. Okay, I'm glad to know that many of you guys are watching us from there. Greetings to you all at the studio. Sir, our country needs total deliverance. Not only the ministers, if not the spirit of embezzlement will continue one generation to another. Please let Mr. Bia Paul declare a day of fast and prayers for this nation. I'm Simon Dema. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This is not the first time ministers are doing this, but COVID-19 has exposed them, but God will pay them in their own coin. Maurice is writing from Tombel. Tilarious, Atia, what should be done to deter further embezzlement of funds? Because whatever may be happening now, the IMF may be convinced to dole out the remaining amounts, and we will see fine people trying to steal from the lot. What should be done so that henceforth no such mismanagements are found?
Well, I think that the Article 66 of the Constitution that provides, that says that vote holders should declare their assets before they take up office. It should be implemented, beginning with the head of state. He has to declare his assets. We have to know how much he's worth. His family members and all those any other person in the country who is holding power, we should know how much they are worth. And you asked if there's need for a cabinet shake-up. Yes, there's need at this point for the cabinet to be cleaned completely, because those people wrote no exams to become ministers. All of us are qualified to be ministers in this country because we love Cameroon, we are patriotic. And President Biya should know that we cannot have somebody in a ministry for 20 years and we expect results, because there's a lot of it becomes like their house. They feel that they can do and undo. The law does not hold them. They present accounts to nobody. It's like it's their own share of the national arrangement, and they have no accounts to present. So there's need for them to be removed, so that they cannot peddle influence in the investigations that are ongoing. Dr. Nick, I should expect him to be appointed Prime Minister tomorrow. Why not? And another person on this panel should be appointed to the government, because these people did not write exams. They did not stand for an election to be ministers. True. They were just appointed because they are Cameroonians, and all of us here are Cameroonians. We enjoy the full rights of citizenship, and the head of state can also appoint any of us. And those who are there, those who are there today, I also hope they have not made the errors. But then if they have stolen, or if they have misappropriated, if they have embezzled or mismanaged state funds, they should be dropped from government as a punitive measure. They should also, the money that they embezzled should be recovered. They have property, it should be sold. They have property abroad, it should be sold. Cameroon cannot be talking about having friendly nations only when it comes to fighting terrorism or a far north, or the problems that we have in the north and southwest regions, where they say they will get in touch with friendly nations. These friendly nations are also hosting property of these ministers. True. We know they own houses abroad, whether in Paris or in New York or wherever. Cameroon should get in touch with friendly nations and sell this property and come back and see how they can redeem the Cameroonians that are suffering, because this 180 billion was supposed to help us to offset the massive fiscal deficit that came as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, to support the healthcare system. I remember in 2015 when Senator Musonge went to the Muyuka District Hospital to provide some hospital beds and some things at the time he was senator. The director of that hospital said they were still using razor blade, this one for 25 francs, to carry out surgeries in 2015. And so it means that it will be even worse now, because that area is the way it is, and money is being diverted to buy new cars, to buy Porsche cars for mission allowances. We have ministers who just move around this country doing nothing. They just want to have money. You move around, they want to look for a house to host regional assemblies. You move around to inaugurate buildings, inaugurate buses, inaugurate cars. No, please, we have to be serious. I think that President Biya should come on board the steering wheel of this country and prove to Cameroonians that he's in charge, and ensure that there's cleansing total cleansing so that we can have a new country that we can call us.
Don't tire.
Okay, we are going to be ending at this juncture. We are out of time. Dr. Nick,
yes.
Thank you for coming in.
Yes. In 1 minute, let me tell the nation again, let's go back to the real thing, to say that the country is going to change, and the president, His Excellency President Paul Biya, is interested in a true and genuine dialogue. You know, the other one is in the dustbin, so he's interested in a true and genuine dialogue that would stop the war and solve all these problems that we have in the nation. There's going to be a genuine dialogue, there's going to be reconciliation, and there's going to be unity in the nation. And when this one happens, you know, like I've been writing on social media, the 350 political parties are going to die, and their requiem mass will be celebrated. And there will be a progressive CPDM. It will still be the CPDM, but the mindset will change to be progressive, not what it is today. And all that opposition, there will only be one opposition. So those opposition, those learn to work together. If you cannot work together, too bad for you. So that's what it's going to be. And watch my lips again. We are going to go to Rwanda, to Ghana, and to Tanzania, and find out whether they have enam there. If they have enam there, we'll keep our own enam. If they don't have an enam there, we'll cancel our own enam and copy what they have. Then we'll cancel the Bilingualism Commission, cancel the Senate, cancel the Social and Economic Council, and make sure that SDOs and governors are elected, not appointed. Thank you.
Okay, we also want to say thank you to you, Professor Mark Anthony, for being part of this edition of the program.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Leo, and I'm saying to your viewers, keep watching Prime R and My Media Prime.
Okay, we want to say thank you to you, Dr. Ndimancho. Michael?
It's a pleasure, Leo, and it's also a pleasure. Thank you so much. I pray that there is actually love should reign. And I think that one of the most important things that we actually have to cultivate is that love. Because if you love your people, you will not embezzle what is meant for them. If you love your people, you will take care of their health, you will take care of their roots, you will take care of their education. So I think that is important, and thank you so much. Continue to do the great job you are doing here. Thanks so much.
Okay, and Atia Tilarious, Zone Nuit, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Leo. To say that Dr. Nick has a lot of wishful thinking. To remind him that the SDF failed to take power in 1992 because of the things they were preaching, to scrap enam and put people out of job. And these are people who are in power today. And so I'm not sure they'll keep you to even get to that point where you flush them out of power. And just to pray that these are our greedy politicians and members of government and others who have eaten the baby's food, they should do well to bring back the baby's food because the baby is crying.
Okay, we want to thank you, Desmond, Eli, Bertrand, and well, thank you to Tabi Tambe Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.